Someone offers you a trade, your entire life right now swapped for the wealthiest human alive in 1000 AD. You're a king with thousands of servants, infinite land, total power over life and death. You'd be insane to say no, right? Except here's what they forgot to mention. Your palace has no glass in the windows and winter just walks in. You've never once eaten a meal that wasn't either rotten, oversalted, or both. Half your children are already dead, and your teeth, what's left of them, are genuinely medieval. Still want the trade? This is the trap nobody talks about when we romanticize old money. Wealth has always existed, but comfort hasn't. And the gap between those two things across 5,000 years of human history is absolutely staggering. Egypt, 2000 BC. You are a nomarch, a provincial governor, the closest thing ancient Egypt had to a regional CEO, and you are spectacularly wealthy by every available measure. You own farmland stretching to the horizon in every direction. You command hundreds of workers. You eat meat on a daily basis, which in 2000 BC is roughly the equivalent of owning a fleet of Ferraris. By every standard your world has available, you are untouchable, and yet it is 3 in the morning and you are already awake. Not because you have an early meeting, because your bedroom has transformed into a clay oven. There is no glass in the windows, no windows in any modern sense, just open gaps in the mud brick wall that funnel night air in when there is any, and turn the room into a furnace the moment the sun shows the faintest interest in rising. You are lying on a wooden frame strung with rope. No mattress. Your pillow is a curved block of wood, shaped to protect the elaborate wig you wear during daylight hours. Every single morning, you wake up with the neck of a man who lost a significant argument with furniture. Breakfast arrives, and this is the luxury portion of your day. Duck, figs, warm flatbread, and a clay jar of beer. You take a bite of the bread, and your molars find something they were not expecting. Grit, sand. Egyptian flour was ground between 2 stones, and no matter how careful the grinders were, the desert always found its way in. The wealthiest men in Egypt did not die with gleaming smiles. They died with teeth worn down to raw nerve endings by their 40s, assuming the other things did not reach them first. But the teeth are the least of your problems this morning. A messenger has arrived at your gate before the sun has fully cleared the horizon, and the message is not complicated. The pharaoh wants to see you. Now, this is where Egyptian wealth reveals its most fundamental flaw. It is not actually yours. It never truly was. Every field, every worker, every jar of grain ultimately belongs to one man, a living God who accepts no excuses and takes disappointment in deeply personal and permanent ways. You stand in the palace and deliver the number your astronomers calculated. 16 cubits. The pharaoh pauses, the kind of pause that drains all sound from a room. You think of the nomarch of Memphis, who promised 15 cubits last season and delivered 12. His tomb was opened, his name chiseled off every surface it had ever appeared on. He did not simply lose his fortune. He lost his existence in this life and the next. You hold eye contact and repeat yourself. 16 cubits, absolutely certain. Because the alternative is not something you are willing to contemplate. You survive the audience. You return home. And for one brief moment, as your young son sprints out to meet you with both arms full of whatever the scribes taught him that day, the weight of all of it lifts. 7 years old and completely electric with life. This right here is as good as it gets in ancient Egypt. Then evening arrives, and with it the mosquitoes. Millions of them, hatching in every patch of standing water the Nile left behind, coating every surface at dusk. They do not distinguish between the governor and the lowest field worker. And inside some of them lives a parasite capable of destroying a child's organs inside a week. All your land, all your authority, all your carefully accumulated grain, and the most lethal thing in your world is invisible to the naked eye. That is Egyptian prosperity. You spend your whole life constructing a tomb because deep down, even you are not entirely convinced this life was worth staying for. Rome, year 100 AD. The Romans have solved several problems the Egyptians never managed, and done it with the particular Roman combination of engineering brilliance and breathtaking self-indulgence. You are a senator, old family money, a significant personal fortune, and a house fitted with underfloor heating. Hot air circulating beneath marble floors while the rest of the known world shivers in the dark. You wake up warm. There is a proper mattress stuffed with wool and feathers. There are pillows. By the standards of every generation that preceded you, this is as close to paradise as Earth gets. Then you visit the bathroom, and paradise reveals some complications. The Romans built communal toilet facilities from carved stone, with water channeled constantly beneath the seats. Efficient, innovative, and utterly devoid of privacy. You sit shoulder to shoulder with other men of senatorial rank, discussing trade legislation while conducting your morning business. When you are finished, you reach for the xylospongium, a sea sponge mounted on a short stick, stored in a shared bucket of diluted vinegar, used by every man in the room before you and every man who will follow. You rinse it. You return it. Nobody considers this unusual. This is the height of Roman civilization. Outside, Rome is 1 million people crammed into streets so narrow that wheeled traffic was banned during daylight hours, which meant the supply carts ran all night, and genuine silence was something the city had collectively forgotten. You travel by litter, carried above the noise and the smell by a team of slaves, curtain drawn against the chaos below. Elevated and untouched, except it does not feel that way for long, because in Rome, being wealthy does not make you safe. It makes you a target. The imperial treasury is chronically underfunded, and the most efficient solution has always been to identify a wealthy senator, construct a convincing accusation, execute him, and absorb his estate. This is not a scandal. It is an established mechanism. So every social gathering of the Roman elite becomes a performance of contradictions. Successful enough to deserve your standing, but not so visibly prosperous that someone with access to the right ear starts doing arithmetic about your property. The dinner parties are where this tension reaches its highest pitch. The food is magnificent. Rare birds, honeyed sauces, wines from 3 different provinces. But every man at the table is quietly cataloging every other man's expenditure. The host just mentioned a new country estate, and the entire table shifted a degree colder. You laugh a fraction too quickly. You drink steadily. You go home through streets that belong to gangs once the sun drops, and you lie awake running the same calculation every wealthy Roman runs before sleep. Am I too visible? Not visible enough? Have I said anything recently that could be interpreted by the wrong person in the wrong direction? Roman wealth is a tightrope, and nobody ever tells you where it ends. England, 1250. You are a baron. You own a castle. As a child, that single sentence would have concluded the entire conversation about what a person could want from life. The answer, it turns out, is a long and specific list. Starting with warmth. Castles were military structures designed to resist prolonged violence, not to house human beings comfortably. The walls are 15 feet of solid stone, which stops armies effectively and traps cold air inside with equal efficiency. The window openings are narrow slits covered by wooden shutters that stop approximately none of the English winter from doing whatever it wants. You sleep wearing every layer you own and pray for morning. The garderobe, which is the medieval word for a toilet, is a stone recess carved into the castle wall with a hole that drops directly into the moat below via a vertical shaft. In winter, the wind traveling upward through that shaft from the frozen water below is an experience that no quantity of land ownership can prepare you for. Breakfast is bread, hard cheese, and ale. Not ale consumed for pleasure. Ale consumed because local water sources were reliably dangerous, and ale, being boiled in its production, was the safest liquid available regardless of rank. Everyone drank it from morning, including the children. You are not drunk, you are simply insulated against a reality that would otherwise be very difficult to endure. You own a lot of land in the village, including the mill, the fields, and also the people that work on them. Every one of those things is a reason for someone with an army to want to remove you from the picture. The Middle Ages did not have stable property rights in any practical sense. They had the concept, and then they had reality, which meant your neighbor 2 counties north has decided your grain stores would look considerably better in his courtyard and has positioned siege machinery outside your eastern wall to make that argument. Feudal warfare was not an interruption to life. It was the rhythm of it. You survive the siege. You outlast the winter. Your one genuine luxury, the single possession in the entire castle that would register as valuable in any era, is a handwritten Bible that cost the equivalent of a working farm. You read it by candlelight, with your breath clouding in the cold air, and try to find something to feel thankful for. The gap between you and a peasant is enormous. The gap between you and actual comfort is infinite. New York City, 1895. The Industrial Revolution has created something genuinely new. Wealth that owes nothing to land or titles or the temperament of a monarch. Pure, liquid industrial cash generated by railroads and steel and the raw kinetic energy of a continent being assembled at speed. You are a railroad baron worth $200 million in 1895 currency, which converts to approximately $8 billion today. You live on Fifth Avenue in a house designed by an architect whose only instruction was to make it look like France, but considerably larger. The bathroom problem has been resolved definitively. Indoor plumbing, a porcelain toilet that flushes reliably. You sit in privacy and warmth and feel the weight of every communal Roman bench and every medieval wall shaft lifting from your shoulders at once. Civilization has finally produced something unconditionally worth celebrating. Everything else is more complicated. Your wardrobe is organized by hour with the discipline of a military timetable. Morning suit for breakfast, walking suit for late morning, frock coat for lunch, white tie for anything involving culture. It is July, 95 degrees. Synthetic fabrics have not been invented. Every item you own is heavy wool, layered, dark, and designed with complete indifference to temperature. Air conditioning does not exist anywhere in the city. You spend the entire summer quietly dissolving inside your own clothes while maintaining the expression of a man for whom comfort is simply never a consideration, because your position does not permit you to admit otherwise. Outside, the workers who built your railroad have developed views about their situation, and they are not expressing those views quietly. 4,000 men are gathered at your gate, and the newspapers have been providing them with vocabulary for months. Cartoons depicting your face on the body of something predatory. Headlines deploying words like robber and parasite. You retreat to the opera, surrounded by men in identical situations, all performing contentment for an audience that has already rendered its verdict. Infinite money and functionally zero freedom. Every meal you host becomes a news item. Every dollar you spend is evidence in a case the public has already decided. New York City, 2025. You are a hedge fund manager in charge of $3.2 billion. And outside of very specific professional circles, nobody knows your name, which isn't accidental. In 2025, visibility is not a status symbol. It's a liability with compounding interest. Your wardrobe reflects this. A gray cashmere hoodie that costs more than most people's monthly rent. Trainers with a logo so understated it functions as a private signal between the handful of people globally who would recognize it. The entire strategy is to move through the world as though you work somewhere unremarkable and cannot quite afford the restaurants you are currently eating at. The pharaoh needed the whole population to know his name. The Roman senator measured his worth in public recognition. You have spent significant money engineering the opposite. Breakfast is a protocol rather than a meal. A pale green liquid containing supplements, adaptogens, and compounds your longevity physician has strong opinions about. You monitor your sleep score, your glucose variability, your morning cortisol curve, and adjust your intake according to the data. You do not eat for enjoyment. You eat for measurable biological outcomes. The Egyptian nomarch built a tomb to survive death. You are engineering a body optimized to delay it. Neither of you is having a particularly good time. The real problem arrives before you finish the liquid. A number has moved, not gradually, not across the arc of a trading day, but inside 4 seconds, because an algorithm processed economic data and reacted before any human mind completed its first associated thought. $200 million, restructured without your involvement. You are connected to this permanently and without option. The pharaoh could withdraw from the world for weeks. The Roman senator could disappear to his country estate for a month without consequence. You cannot go offline for 60 minutes without the mounting certainty that something significant is deteriorating in your absence. This is the leash that no previous generation of wealthy humans has ever worn. It has no buckle and no release mechanism. So you travel. The jet maintains readiness around the clock. Properties in 4 countries, including a compound in New Zealand the press describes as a bunker, which you prefer to think of as a considered contingency. You spend 400 hours a year inside a pressurized metal tube crossing time zones, never fully arriving anywhere, never fully leaving either. Citizen of the world, which is a flattering way of saying you belong completely to none of it. The loneliness operates at a structural level. Old friends cannot find the right register around you anymore. They calculate things when you offer to pay, and then overcorrect in ways that make everything worse. The people around you professionally are employees, meaning any approximation of genuine friendship carries a legal subtext your advisors have strongly recommended against. You occupy a category containing almost nobody else, and it is, from the inside, considerably quieter than it looks. Then the phone rings from a number you do not recognize, and the voice knows something specific about your daughter's location that it has absolutely no business knowing. This is the final irony of modern wealth. You have biometric entry systems, a security team on encrypted channels, reinforced rooms behind ordinary-looking walls. You have spent more on personal protection than some governments allocate to public safety. And you are more genuinely exposed than a medieval baron behind 15 feet of solid granite, because your data exists everywhere and your family are human beings living in a world that has become transparent to anyone with the right tools and sufficient motivation. Late at night, the house manages itself with blinds on a timer. Heating, automated, and white noise begins at the frequency your sleep data identified as most effective. Everything is measured, controlled, and functions exactly as designed. 5,000 years of accumulated human ingenuity, and here you are at the end of it, the beneficiary of every solution any previous generation managed to engineer. The heat problem, food problem, cold and the danger and the visibility. All of it addressed, refined, and optimized. And as you lie there in the perfectly calibrated dark, you become aware of the one variable that nobody across 5,000 years of wealth ever managed to solve. It was never on any list. No civilization budgeted for it. No amount of money in any era ever got close. The pharaohs had it. The Roman senators had it. The barons had it. The railroad kings had it. And you, lying in your optimized dark in your optimized house, have it too. The oldest tax that wealth has ever levied, and the only one that never gets cheaper no matter how rich you become.